Hi everybody, my name is Jimmy Does Knitting and I am an American living here in Amsterdam and this is my podcast. Now, it is Jimmy Does Knitting, but it also is sometimes crochet and stuff. So, welcome. We'll go over some basic things. It is kind of sunny here today, but it's mostly gloomy and rainy, so I decided that we would go in the living room this time because I like it better, it's more comfortable. Got a big old couch, got a fancy painting in the back, and a lot more to discuss. So, let's go for it. If you're new to this channel, then you wouldn't know that I actually started off crocheting before I did knitting, and I would just crochet blankets like it's nobody's business. That's like what my MO was during COVID. I had no idea. I was just like, I have to do this. So I got really good at crocheting and I started designing things. And one thing is, I have some blankets that are kind of ugly, but like a granny way that I really like a 70s sort of way. And I have them upstairs in a stash that if anybody wants to have them, I give them away. And because it's so cold and our gas bill went up from 60 euros to 300 euros, we've been keeping the temperature a little low. And my boyfriend decided to go into the blanket stash and he chose one that I absolutely love. It's not beautiful, but it's great. He chose this little thing that I made. It's like a chevron stitch blanket. It's made with Cosyfine yarn. It's a lot of scraps from other projects, and then I also bought a bunch of green, some of this, because the whole room is blue. Ceiling, everything, window frames is blue. So a lot of this is coming off as blue. It's actually, that does not help with the true color. But it's a green blanket. It's ugly. I absolutely loved making it. I loved designing it. I took 3 patterns and mixed them all together and then forgot everything about it. There are little details with it's ribbing a little bit. So sometimes it's front, sometimes it's back loop. It's whatever I felt like at the time and what was needed. So it's a little bit textured. It has a little bit of stuff you can see here and over here. And I really enjoy it, and it hasn't found a home yet, but maybe that home is my home. So that was it. And I'm going to keep this on my lap because it is quite chilly. What I am wearing is a Knitwits and Yarns design pattern. It's this classic jumper that I modified slightly. It's not a color work thing, or color work, but it's just usually one plain thing. I really bought the wrong yarn for this. I bought a chunky weight and he's worsted Aran, and it was still new in my knitting journey, which was actually still on this podcast because it was 6 months ago. And I really didn't like it at the time because this is not what I wanted to do. I wanted a super oversized jumper for my boyfriend, and I incorporated certain features into it, like a split hem and the stripes, just for him, and then it finished it and it didn't fit at all whatsoever, but it fit me. And this thing is made out of Marifine. No, that's wrong. It's Mayflower yarns, and it was almost a chunky weight. It's what I did my cowl and hat in last time. This was the sweater that those leftovers came out of. And it is so comfortable. It's nice and warm. It's super dense. It's a chunky weight knit on 4.5 millimeter needles. I had to go down to the extra small size just to get something that fit me with this, because my gauge swatch was super off, which is why you should swatch for gauge in garments, even though I know people don't like to do it. But it's been great. It's a good one for this winter. I'm super happy with this sweater. So you can check it out if you want a basic drop shoulder, bottom up, seamed sweater. So fantastic. So let's get to what's on on and off the needles. This is coming early. This is 2 weeks after the last one I filmed, which is crazy for me. It's because I've just been knitting and knitting and knitting. Work is very slow, very, very slow. So I've had a lot of time during the day. And also I've been knitting some accessories because I've had some ideas in my head that I've been trying to get out. And I've just needed to knit a ton. So I've got lots to show and lots to discuss. First one is I have a little Dutch Oslo hat by Petite knit. This is another scrap yarn project. You can tell, especially on the inside, that I use 2 different reds. Maybe you can tell, maybe you can't, but this is a little pinker, and then the brim is a little bit more orange. And that was from my big thing of crochet yarn. Something must have just happened. We have horns, so I apologize for that. Either a wedding or somebody won a football game. But I wanted to just make a scrap yarn project that's silly, and it was this lovely hat by Petite Knit. It's an Oslo hat. It's sort of my go-to hat, especially because it's super easy to make. It's all stockinette stitch, well, knit stitch in the round, essentially, and it uses up a decent amount of yarn because of the folded brim. Now, I've shortened this a little bit, but in general, it's whatever. This is not the first Petite Knit Oslo hat that I've made on this podcast. This is like the 3rd or 4th one that I've showed you, but it's great. I'm gonna make, I think, with like the scraps, like a really like multicolor thing, something like this blanket, but in an Oslo hat with like a pom-pom on it or something. That would be a good like weekend project that doesn't need to take anything. I actually knit this all in one day. It was last Sunday, and it's great. It was just like a little Dutch thing I do. And what I do is I take the accessories or train stuff that I like don't want, that I just felt knitting, and a lot of time this was scrap yarn, and I take that to work with me, and as soon as I get like 10 hats or something, I do that, and if people want them, they want them. If they don't, then that's fine. But I always have like a little stash for gifts, because I don't really gift knit, but if you want something that I've knit before that I wanted to knit, then by all means, please take it. So, have that. The real stunner of the show is our next one. And this was made with an acquisition that you haven't seen. This is the We Are Knitters Marifine in Ochre. It comes up with a little bit more tan in this room because it's so blue. But it is 100% Marino wool. It's supposed to be a worsted weight, although I think it's a little thin. It is 17 stitches per 10 centimeters or 4 inches in 24 rows. It is 123 yards or 112 meters per 50 gram ball. So that's it. I bought 3 of these, and I used 2, and then this is the leftover of the second one to knit this. This is my cowl. I discussed the chunky weight version of it last podcast, but this is the cowl that I made out of it. And the reason why I really wanted to do this in like a worsted weight, oh, my hair's a little funky, that I wanted to do this in a worsted weight is to see if I could make a sweater out of this. I want to use this in a sweater, and because of the stitch, I'm not exactly sure how to use it. It's all like one row of twisted stitches and then another row of plain stitches, but it's a lot of work, and it's actually can be pretty complicated. Like, it's not for, I mean, this pattern is pretty easy, but if I start putting it into a garment and using it in sections or something, I think it's really going to be more difficult, and I'm not exactly sure how to use it, but I want to design with it. But I think this will be my first pattern. It has yet to be named, but it's a cool little cowl that has these beautiful like woven diamond twisted stitches. And what's really cool about this is the way that if you do a twisted rib, which it doesn't necessarily need a rib, I think you can do it with an I-cord, but I like the twisted rib because it's twisted stitches, and it's like, this is what's going to happen. But the twisted rib goes into the stitches, which I think is a really nice design touch, and same thing here on the other end, that when you cast off or bind off or go to the ribbing, that the pattern flows, and it's just like one continuously woven thing. It's in the round, which is the easiest way to work this pattern. You can work it flat, which is a little bit of a more difficult chart to read and make. I have done it because I have made some swatches that we don't need to see. But the cowl is beautiful. And what's great about this is the same thing as last week. It is so chunky and fluffy. It is so warm and great because the yarn is almost like double knit. So it's really like a squishy, not like Brio squishy, but it's like a squishy fabric that has really good knit to it. I'm obsessed with this pattern. I really am, and I want to make it into a bunch of different things. And I am so stoked about this, and I obviously can't stop touching it. Usually people put this stuff down, but I'm really into it. I'm going to write this up and try to do something with it. So that's really good. In terms of the wool, I treated myself. I had went on a whole spiel a couple podcasts ago about how, I can't afford yarn that's expensive because I knit sweaters all the time and I just crank them out, and I don't want to spend like 200 euros on a sweater. But I think with accessories you can do it. This was on sale. It's still quite expensive. I think I paid like 30 euros including shipping for all the yarn, and I have like 50 grams left, which I can't make another one out of these. This is about 100 grams. So this is a nice one. I have a sweater out of this that I previously knit. It pills a lot, but it's comfortable, is really next to skin soft. So that is my yet to be unnamed cowl with the We Are Knitters yarn. Now, because I thought that was so cool, I wanted to design a matching hat to go with it. And then I was going to maybe give them as a pattern set. And so this is another yarn that you haven't seen that I've been experimenting with. I got the Knitting for Olive Heavy Marino in Rust. It is 125 meters per 50 grams. I can't tell the other information on it because it's hidden by the tag, but it's a really beautiful. Sometimes it's a little bit more reddy, sometimes it's a little bit more browny depending on the light. It's a great quality yarn. It's not exactly what I was expecting because everybody's like knitting for olive, and I really wanted to try it. It's a great yarn to work with. It's easy to work with. It goes good on either my Chaogu or my Adi needles that I have. So I think that it's really good for that. It's a little bit like, I was expecting it to be a little bit silkier. I don't know. The other Marinos that I've had interactions with feel like smoother in your hand as you're knitting them. I guess this seemed a little bit more like, I don't want to say rougher, but like maybe hairier. And I think this would be really good for like a boyfriend sweater. So something like this, like oversized, maybe like a drop shoulder, little to no like stuff, just something plain. I think it would be really like hard wearing and a lovely yarn to have for that. Like you'd feel kind of like, yeah, this is a sweater, and it's super comfortable. So that's my little Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino yarn review. I would use this again for like a boyfriend sweater. It was pretty expensive. The 3 of these 50 gram balls cost about 30 euros. It took about a week to come, but it was all right. It was a nice treat yarn, and then they have enough to make another hat, maybe even a cowl, maybe not. But you can use it for other things, so that's really nice. I got a couple projects out of this. And what I made with this was on my lap. This is the complimentary hat to go with the cowl that I just made. So I'll put this on. First, let me show you this. This is the decreases that I did, where the cap decreases and then it like stars almost into the middle with these twisted stitches. So you have like a round or two of like regular pattern, and then it twists into the star, and I think it's really, really, really nice. And then I also did a reverse twisted rib, so when you wore it with the brim coming up, that you have the twist on the outside, because I really like that. I think it's a little bit tighter. My one complaint about 1x1 rib is that like the knit stitches are a little looser, and it fits so well. It is so squishy and warm. Like this thing is like a cloud on my head. It's great. It's exactly what I needed for it. It's one of those things where like I can't stop looking and touching. Like she's feeling herself a little bit, and it's a fantastic hat. I'll never wear it. It's the wrong color, but I do have the ability to knit it again in black, and I might do that. I will have to see. I'm obsessed with it. I think I might knit myself a like a cowl version of it first before I knit the hat, but we could do it. Also, I didn't do it for this one because of the yarn, but I think this might beg for a little bauble on top, like a pom-pom. I think it would be really nice with a pom-pom. But I don't know. Anyway, I think it looks fantastic and do that. Now, my hair is lovely again. And what I wanted to say about this is I don't think I'm going to write this up into a pattern. It's actually a little bit more on the complicated side to create because you have to move the stitch markers and then you have to move them like back and you have to keep track of the rows and how to do it. And I was not entirely sure that this would be something that people would want to knit. I'm a very product-focused knitter, so I don't mind making these complicated knits that have like these beautiful patterns and stuff like that, but I understand, and I mean, I'm not trying to make like commercial knit patterns or be like super popular with my designs, but I also don't know how to write this up very well, and I think that people wouldn't really enjoy knitting it, because even I got confused, and I've knit the pattern, I don't know, 4 or 5 times at this point, and I was just like, people are just gonna look at this hat and then get to the crown and be like, screw this, there's no way I'm making this. So I don't think that I'm gonna knit it up, write it up. I could, I have it all written down. I would probably make the brim a little taller next time, but yeah, I don't know about this one in terms of writing it up. It's beautiful. I love it. I just don't think people would enjoy it. I don't know if it would be worth the time. So, I don't know. It's one for the backseat. But I really wanted to knit, this a couple different ways in a couple different worsted yarns so we could see if I could make a sweater out of it. And the answer is yes, I want to make the sweater. So, goal accomplished. Hat design accomplished. Will it see the light of day? Probably not. Is it beautiful? I'm obsessed with it. So somebody will get this very nice, high quality hat with a one-of-a-kind design when they pick it out and decide that they want it. So those are my finished objects, which was 3 accessories. And I know what you're thinking is like, that's crazy. What are you doing? Where are your sweaters? Where are your sweaters? What's going on? So I have a couple to do. But before we get there, we'll go one more accessory. I have a bunch of bags down here that I've stolen from the event that I was working with stuff. Just a little progress update. This is my cowl that I'm making out of Holst Supersoft ink. It was it got brighter. I'm a little bit washed out. It's a like fast fashion scarf that I've had for years that I loved, and I have it in gray, but it won't dye because it's plastic, and I wanted to make it for myself. The idea is the current one is 48 inches, which is 4 feet. I don't know what that is in centimeters, and I was going to Kitchener stitch it. Because this stitch is not as spread out as I want it to be, like I want it to be a little bit more stretchy, which is what I like on the one that I have. I'm going to knit it a little shorter, so I won't knit it the full 48 inches. I'll probably take like 15 centimeters, 6 inches, 4 centimeters, or 4 inches, 10 centimeters less than the 48. And then I'll put it together. So that way this will bloom, it will really puff up, which is really nice. And then I can stretch it a little bit as I wear it, because it's an infinity cowl and you want to wrap it around twice. I made some decent progress. I had some like downtime. The stitch marker is where I was last time. And I had some train journeys that I needed to knit on. And I got a decent amount. It is so slow to knit. I cannot tell you how slow this is going. Especially with like the hats and like this stuff. I'm working with a lot of worsted weight yarn now. And this is fingering weight, like lightly fingering weight on a 3mm needle, and it's just going so slow. But I don't know. We'll work on it. There's no pressure to get this done. I think that I put myself a deadline of December 1st, because then I would be working on it for like 3 months, and I just want it off my needles by then. Plus, I want to wear it to the office in winter because I always need a scarf when I'm in the office. I don't know why. And it seems like a really good one. So I just give myself to December 1st. I can finish it by then. I don't necessarily need to do a big push, or at least quite yet. Will depend how attentive I am to it. But yeah, we'll go for it. So that's my little Infinity Cowl from Fast Fashion update. Another update is my Slade cardigan. So I am using Drops Big Marino. It's color 2. It's just a gray. I think it's medium gray. And it's worsted weight yarn that is superwash and 17 stitches and 22 rows per 10 centimeters or 4 inches. And yeah, it's 75 meters in this ball. So not a tremendous amount, but it's all right. And I'm knitting a cardigan for my father because I was out of knitting inspiration. I was like, what do you want? So he chose this one, which is a mess a little bit right now. And this is the Slade cardigan. Now this went on hold for a little bit. I finished the sleeves and I put it on hold. I sewed them in, which I learned because I knit these in the round. Probably shouldn't knit them in the round because otherwise it gets bunchy. And these are it will block out all right, but they were the first attempt that I had of sewing one of the sleeves in. It was super bunchy and gross. So next time that I knit a seamed sweater, I actually have to knit it seamed and seam it up because that way it will lay flat and fit better on the body. But after a couple attempts, this is all right, and I'm nearing the end of it. The deal is it's a sort of basic cardigan, but it has this like big shawl collar or like a scarf collar, and it needs to be pretty big. So there's this much already that I've knit on it. I'm about ready to start some buttonholes for it, and then just knit it. This is probably a third of the size that it needs to be, so I'm not too far. I've done this in like a night and a day. We'll see how difficult the buttonholes are, because I do not know how to do those. I've never done those before, so we'll see about the instructions, and I can always YouTube it. But it's going well. I think that this one I just need to crank out. It just needs to be done. It just needs to be off my needles. I need to send it out. The buttonholes will take a little bit, and sourcing some buttons that fit it will also take a little bit. But I think I'm over it. It's knit up really fast, and it's been a really nice garment to knit. But I have more like designy and like adventurous things that I want to try, and even more accessories. And having such a large project on my needles that I'm like, I just picked up and knit because I was out of inspiration and I needed something to knit on. That now that I have the inspiration back, it's like not so fulfilling. So I just need to send it out and see what happens from there. But it's coming together really well. I knit it to what he gave me in terms of measurements, which I think are wrong. And also I knit it on a 0.5 millimeters larger needle than it said to, and it like kind of fits me all right, but he's bigger than me, and it's also superwash yarn, so it will like expand. So now I think it maybe is even tight on me, but then it will get a lot bigger and more relaxed as it wears, which would fit him better. I don't know. I really just don't know. So that's what's happening there. I did buy some Chow laces. So the Addies I couldn't make work with this collar. It's like the 250, 300 stitches in worsted weight, and those connections on the Addie clicks that I have are just a no-go with that. It's just, it just makes it too difficult. So I bought like a 36-inch Chow cord so I could make it on this, and it's working fine. The needles are a bit sharp for the yarn. The yarn, because it's superwash and because it has so many strands of merino, they want to like expand and split. So when you have such a sharp tip, you sometimes go in the middle of it sometimes, and I don't really like it, but it's fine for the ribbing. It's just like 2x2 rib, and it's not a whole lot. It's pretty simple. So it's fine. I also went down the needle size for the ribbing on the collar because that's what you do. And also I was concerned that over time that it would get really like floppy-ish, and that's not something I wanted. So I went down a lot. I went to a 4mm needle from a 5.5, and it's looking fine, and I think it will be the right decision ultimately. New cable's working great. I also bought a really tiny cable so I could try to do like hats in the round, because I really wanted to do this stitch with my chow goose, because the addies that I have a fixed addie one, which is like a medium tip. It's not blunt, but it's not as sharp as the chow goose. And with a twisted stitch, I recommend like a sharper needle so you can really get in there and twist it. And I got a little teeny tiny cord. I put it on my needles, and it's not working. And that's because I have the 5-inch tips. Is that what it is? The 5-inch tips instead of the 4-inch tips. I went with the 5-inch tips because I have larger hands, and the 4-inch tips like get my palm when I'm knitting, and they like poke. So I got the bigger ones, but with the bigger ones, even with the smaller cord, like it fits diameter wise, but you have to like move the needles too much and it stretches and it doesn't work. So I need to try to find some shorter tips so I can do small circumferences without doing magic glue. So yeah, I have a big cord that I ordered and a small cord that I ordered. They're fine. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that. So that's the Slade cardigan. It's by Brooklyn Tweed. It's by Michelle somebody. I put it in the show notes along with the link to the pattern, so you can look it up. It's really nice. And then my last work in progress has been something that I've been scheming on for a while. I had ordered the yarn like over a week before I filmed the last podcast, and it didn't come, and I was very disappointed by it. But I managed to get it, and I started on the project. I casted on everything. I really tried to cast on about 3 or 4 more projects, and I held myself back because I was like, I can't do this. This is going to be so overwhelming. I don't know what to do. So, so I did that. I ordered a bunch of stuff from Holst so I could make a weird sweater that I wanted to make that nobody would want to wear. I got the color Poppy, and this is all in the Supersoft way. I got the color, this is attached to something, Clover Leaf, which is this green. And then I got a color, this is the Ecru, which is like a natural thing. Did I need a full cone of it? No. Did I want a full cone of it? Yes, so I bought a full cone. And I bought way too much because I'm knitting this on 3.75mm needles, but the color work is going to be on 4.5mm needles, so it's a lot. So, can you guess what I'm making from this? The answer is a holiday sweater, of course. And one of the things when I first started knitting, and I didn't even know how to do it yet at that time, was I want an ugly Christmas sweater. I want to knit something that's hideous and that I absolutely love. And this is what's coming out of it. Now, Skeindeer Knits has this really beautiful design your own festive holiday sweater. It's a yoke pattern, it's color work, it's top down, and then she has different motifs that you can like incorporate into it, and you can do it all throughout the whole sweater. I'm going to modify heavily because I think that I can make it uglier than she wanted, than she anticipated. So I am going to do that. I'm not at that modification point tremendously like yet, but I have done some stuff already. So this is my progress right now. You can't see it a whole lot, but I did like the first row. There's like a little fancy motif, and then I did the snowflake row, and then I did another round of the fancy motif, and then I'm gonna have some Christmas trees and some snowmen, and it will be fantastic. So this is the sweater so far. It's just really weird because I'm knitting it on a 4.5mm, and it is a like a fingering weight yarn, and this thing is going to be super light, and it's also going to use half the amounts of yarn that I bought, if not less. And it's really it's nice. It's easy to follow. Like if you've done one yoke, this will be fine. If you've done color work, this is a great entry. And you can just play with it. I think that's the fun in this particular one, is you just get to play with it and do whatever you want and see what happens. I'm finishing this, the deadline is the 25th of December, clearly, and we'll see if I can get to that. I'm shortening the color work. I'm just going to have it on the yoke and not necessarily on the rest of the sleeves or anything, although you can do the whole pattern like that. But as you notice, I don't have a neckline, and this is the neckline at the moment. And that is because with the red, I'm going to make obnoxious, like, cuffs in a waistband that are like, I don't know, 6 inches, maybe longer than this, like super whatever, like tight knit cuffs, and I want a turtleneck, and I want the turtleneck to be put on after I knit the garment. And that's because with color work, as you do the sleeves and as you do a neck, the whole thing spreads out and it gets lower, and I want to be able to knit the turtleneck at the right length, and I have quite a long neck, so I need to like knit it and then block it, which also the colors run on Holst a little bit, so I'm a little concerned about the green and the red. They really run sometimes, and so I'm going to soak it in like cold water for like 5 minutes and then like rinse, and then like soak it in cold water for 5 minutes and rinse, that sort of thing. And then I'll do the whole soaping thing at the very end. But anyway, I want to see like what this sits as, and I want it to be pretty done, and then I'll knit the turtleneck so it's really like up to my chin and then like down again. Because if I did that before and it was fine and then it expanded a little bit, you know, maybe the bottom would come up here, and that's not what I want. So that's the plan with this, and I'm going to try to make it as like fun and festive as I can, because that's what I wanted, and I'll have enough to make another one should somebody choose to do it. So that's my festive yoke pullover. I'm holding it like this, I shouldn't. But the Festive Yoke Pullover by Skeindeer Knits. She has great colorwork patterns, a lot of traditional Norwegian sort of things. I haven't tried any of her stuff before. This is pretty approachable, and I'm really quite pleased, and I'm very excited for the result, because I'm very much a product knitter, and I don't know if I would be knitting a fingering weight sweater on 3.75 or 4.5 millimeter needles if I wasn't. I don't know, but this is going to be a fun one. The charts are really great. So that's that. The only other thing I have to show once I untangle myself from this glorious mess of Christmas yarn is this. So I got on a kick of buying fancy yarns, and I wanted to try some Malabrigo Rios. I always see this, and it looks so squishy. I mean, look at this stuff. It looks so squishy and so fantastic, and I got this at Stephen and Penelope, which they were, like, draining their stock, and this is the only color that I really kind of liked. They had some, like, weird peachy ones, and it was 18 euros. It was all right. And then I think I'll make one of these cowls for it, I just wanted to use this yarn is really what I'm getting at. And I know that this is 100 grams and this is 100 grams and it will work, and I want to see what this knits up in a bunch of different yarns. So I will make another one of those with this at one point whenever I feel possessed. Lately, I feel possessed to cast on a bunch of different things at different times, so it will probably be soon. It would be good to send with the Slade cardigan. My dad really likes red. I wouldn't say that it would go with the Slade, but I know that he might appreciate this, so we'll see. We'll see what I get when I get this done and if I do stuff with it. But I wanted to do it, and I'm very pleased with how I'm going to do it. I forgot to read the stuff. So it's 100% superwash merino, so this is superwash again. It's a worsted weight of 210 yards or 192 meters per 100 grams, 18 to 22 stitches per 4 inches. So yes, it's so squishy. This is going to be perfect for the cowl that I knit. Like, it's going to be wonderful in this. So I'm very excited. So that was my last acquisition. Yeah, what else do I have going on right now? I have some ideas. I have like a couple of knitting ideas and sweaters that I want to try out that I need to like either get some yarn for or just use some of the drops haul that I got the other day. And I also have this like basket weave sweater that I found on like a grown-up man, but I want to make a mini version for my nephew. And I'm trying so hard not to buy yarn for that. Like, that was one of the things last weekend when I went around to buy the Malabrigo, that I was like, I need a yarn to like get this baby sweater off of my needles and like start knitting it immediately. But then I would have technically 3 sweaters on my needles, which is just too much. Too many projects, too much. I very much am comfortable on like 3 or 4, more than that, and it's like, I don't know what to do, and I feel like I'm not making progress on anything. But yeah, so be on the lookout for another baby sweater, another cowl, some finished cardigans, and I don't know, maybe some swatches. I don't know if anybody would want to see that. I mean, nobody watches these videos, so I don't know who I'm getting, but that's maybe a thing. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to try to take this a little bit more seriously, maybe invest in a camera, maybe try to post a little bit more. I think that part of the problem is the algorithm. I'm in the Netherlands, and that's my geo region, and it's not like a great knitting scene, and a lot of people are going to do this. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on, but I don't do this for the money by any means. I don't do this for the attention. And this is a time when I really get to sit down and talk to all of you, if you've even made it this far. And we'll go and see for that. So expect some more knitting, because work is going to remain slow. And the deal is in the Netherlands, you have like 6 months to like a year contract. And then after a couple of those, they give you a permanent contract. But while you're under contract, it's very difficult to fire you. So I know that I have a job through January. But I don't know if they have the work to give me after that, maybe not. So we'll figure that out, and I'll just focus on this sort of thing as it goes along, which is perfectly fine with me. I love a side hustle. I love being creative again. It's one thing I didn't do for years. I got really burnt out, and like I had to stop. That's why I'm in project management now, and then now it's a good outlet to do it, and it's what I think about when I do yoga and what I do everything else. So if you've stayed this long, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Subscribe, like, get in contact with me on either Instagram or in Ravelry. Happy to discuss knitting, and I will talk to you all hopefully soon. See you later. Bye.